Palantir, let's talk some Palantir here. Palantir, usually a very talked about stock. Usually a lot of info coming out of Palantir. Things have been a little bit quiet recently, okay? And ever since the stock made its big move back at the very, this called early February, stock's kind of just been chilling out, just chilling, not really doing much, right? But there were some interesting articles that came out 2 days ago on Business Insider, Bloomberg, about Palantir's secret weapon, their boot camps, right? And it's fascinating. They were writing Palantir has been leaning into the events to sell its artificial intelligence platform, or AIP. The company put on over 500 boot camps last year and expects it to average 5 camps a day globally this year. And a lot of people, by the way, feel like AIP is really just a Trojan horse to sell potentially Foundry. So I don't know. That's just, a thought process that's out there. Alex Karp, we can't do enough of them, he said in the last earnings call. We're limiting the number of people who can come in. It's like a rock concert. It's like, yeah, if you know somebody, you can get backstage. We're already overfilled for our AIP boot camp, he added in the earnings call. And it's just, we don't know how to deal with this actual demand. Still, one thing Palantir is hoping that people do who attend the boot camps is go away knowing how to use the tools, right? That's the whole purpose in signing up for Palantir's products, and how to show others how to use them. But some analysts think they need to do more to support growth. Right now, they need more manpower, says this analyst, right? Now, I thought Amit on X had a really good kind of insight on this whole situation here. And I just want to read you briefly 2 things he wrote here, okay? Amit says, first, our boy Rishi, with a $5 Palantir price target, says he's skeptical of Palantir's bootcamp strategy scaling without hiring a traditional sales force. Kevin Kawasaki, Palantir's global head of business development, answers his concern by explaining that they can't try to grow with a traditional sales force in a linear way because their demand is exponential. What does that mean? Palantir can't just hire 500 salespeople and ask them to make 50 calls a day. That's not how you sell software like Palantir. But even if you did, it would not capture the amount of demand they are seeing from clients. These clients want AI. They want to see it in action. So boot camps are the best way to sell. However, this is the part that blew me away. Some customers who attend a Palantir boot camp can then turn around and host their own events for their own customers, allowing the model to proliferate indefinitely. This is called an infinite money loop, as I call it, okay? Palantir, the company that could not sell, has turned their go-to-market strategy into a network effect. J.D. Power is already using what they learned from boot camps to host one of their own, which will only further show Palantir's software and how to compound the growth of people learning how to use it and eventually buy it from Palantir. I do not see another company on the stock market that has turned a huge weakness, selling, right, which has been the thing that's talked about as a weakness at Palantir, not the product. No one's ever doubted Palantir's product. The only thing people have ever really doubted with Palantir is 2 things: valuation and their ability to sell the product. Dare I say, proprietary moat because of how hard it is to effectively copy and scale software boot camps. So 100%, and we're going to get to see that in the numbers this year. What type of growth rates is Palantir putting up? We got a glimpse of it last quarter, 70% growth, U.S. commercial. What are we looking at this year? It's going to be very, very exciting. Now, additionally, on top of that, here's the situation, okay? Mr. Softy just told us they can't even keep up with their AI demand, right? So if they can't, what about Palantir? Palantir is set to be the company, or certainly one of the companies that is most well positioned to really capitalize I would put them kind of into a SaaS space, right? Software as a service in regards to AI, right? They've been at the cross section of data and for artificial intelligence before everybody was talking about AI, right? And so they're just so well positioned. And analysts have the company doing 20% revenue growth roughly this year, around there, right? And I'm just looking at it, I'm like, hearing what Microsoft has to say, hearing the talk about the boot camps, having this continuous spread this year, I have a hard time thinking they're only going to grow 20% this year. I mean, I think there's a realistic possibility maybe this company puts up a 3 handle or above when it comes to revenue growth for the full year. We'll see. But very, very exciting times, I think, to be a Palantir shareholder, and earnings are coming sooner rather than later. I I will be live streaming Amazon's earnings, by the way, on Twitch, and I will likely be live streaming Palantir's earnings on YouTube, or not on YouTube, on Twitch as well, when that earnings does drop, okay? All right, so let's get into Palantir, why I'm buying more Palantir shares before their earnings here, okay? So, first off, if you follow me on Patreon, if you're a Patreon member, Palantir was one of the 5 stocks I bought today, literally, right? And here's the deal. Okay, so I was looking at Microsoft's numbers, listening to Microsoft's commentary, AI strong like Donkey Kong. Microsoft's already starting to see a lot of benefits from AI overall, and I think that bodes very well for companies like Palantir. Now, if we think about Palantir, this is fascinating because U.S. commercial revenue growth last quarter, which that was a 2023 quarter, by the way, that was up 70% year over year. Now, what about the previous quarter? Where was growth at for U.S. commercial? Well, that quarter, growth was at 33%. But what about the previous quarter? Well, the previous quarter was 20% U.S. commercial revenue growth. So let me get this right. We went from 20% U.S. commercial revenue growth to then 33% to then 70 percentage points. Where's this quarter going to be at? Is this quarter another 70% number? Are we still accelerating like 80%, 90%, 110%? I don't know. All I know is it's going to be great. It's going to be great. That's very comforting to know that we're going to be going into this quarter with a great number. Once again, is it better than 70%? I don't know. If it is, if we come in at like an 81% number, an 85% number, a 97% U.S. commercial revenue growth number, you could see a 3 handle on Palantir end of week. No joke. If you were to see if we take that number up to a higher level than 70%, you will probably see something with a 3 in front of this stock next week at this time. And I know that's hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around right now because Palantir is not even remotely close to that. I mean, just a day ago, it was trading at, $20 a share? So to then think about 30 or above, but that's what will likely happen. If we come in with an 85, 95, 110% revenue growth, it'd be shocking. Absolutely shocking, okay? So now keep in mind, in regards to 2024, these numbers, this isn't even really a lot of the reality of AI yet. Because if we know something, we know 2024 is really the year where all the companies will really thrive that sell somewhat software-related products, right? So, like 2023 was really the year of NVIDIA. And obviously NVIDIA is going to continue to benefit for years to go in the future with chips. But, NVIDIA is kind of, they're the chip company. They're kind of building the highways and the roads for everybody, right? And you have Palantir, which is like the buildings for the city. And I just think like the revenue growth we're going to see from this company is going to far outstrip where analysts are at. And if it far outstrips where analysts are at, then analysts are going to have to go much more bullish on Palantir, which is going to lead to an entire upgrade cycle in regards to Palantir stock. Not only will it lead to an upgrade cycle of people going from underperforms to overperform and, holds to buys and buys to strong buys and things like that, but then you're going to be looking at a whole cycle of people raising their price targets on it. Analysts will have to start adjusting all their numbers because let's say all of a sudden Palantir is growing at a much more rapid clip than where analysts think they're going to be growing at. That is going to lead to a whole upgrade cycle there. Palantir is still at the infant stage of profitability, so if they expand that meaningfully this year, which analysts are actually pretty conservative with EPS estimates for this year, then you're talking about you got it all, right? And that's why all of a sudden you can get this insane kind of momentum there. And then we still don't even have S&P 500 inclusion happening yet, right? And that's still like, I would say, if I had to put odds on it, I would say 95% probability Palantir gets in the S&P 500 at some point this year. In 2024, I would say 95%, 5% probability doesn't happen. So that's still out there, right? So if all of a sudden growth starts coming in way better than expected, revenue and earnings per share, margin growth, and you get an upgrade cycle, and then, S&P 500 inclusion is likely still coming this year at some point, it's not hard to imagine all of a sudden the stock's got a 3 in front of it, right? And so that could be pretty dang epic. My thing is, so I hold 5,555 shares in the public account. It's about $125,000 position. I put in less than 50,000 into it, right? And so we've made way more on the stock than I even put into the stock. my hunches in regards to the situation, I'm going to be looking back 12 months from now, and I think I'm going to be in a situation where I'm like, I wish I bought way heavier. I think that's what is going to happen. I'm going to be looking back and I'm like, why did I not buy more Palantir? Oh my gosh. Which is not the worst situation in the stock market. There's much worse situations than that. But that's my hunch. When I look at this, I think it's going to be very, very exciting. And I think Carp's going to be out there very, very confident. Now, obviously, if all of a sudden, let's say growth rates plummeted, then it's a whole different situation. Then you're looking at Palantir back at $18, $19. But considering now we're going into the 2024 numbers and considering the AIP boot camps, it's just really, really hard for me not to see growth, maybe even accelerating more or just coming in with some epic numbers here. So, yeah, I'm feeling very, very bullish on Palantir, okay? Now, am I going to play any Palantir call options for this week? No. You never know. All of a sudden, one number could be off for Palantir and maybe they find a way to sell it off like they did Meta. I don't know. I'm not feeling like that's going to happen, but still, I'm not going to play that game. Okay, next one up here. Stories. Tesla is as much a story stock as a reality at this point.
By 9% in the last quarter, marking the largest decline all the way back since 2012. But the stock jumped in late trading after Elon Musk told investors that new affordable EV models could arrive sooner than expected.
We've updated our future vehicle lineup to accelerate the launch of new models ahead of previously mentioned start of production in the second half of 2025. So we expect it to be more like the early 2025, if not late this year.
And joining us now is Colin Rusch, Oppenheimer Senior Research Analyst. I don't know if you watched the show. Yesterday we had one of your, not a colleague, but someone who's also an analyst, Garrett Nelson, who said the bad news is in the stock. And I said, well, I don't know whether the revenue news is in it or the margins, which were shrinking, or the bottom line number. But what might not be in it is worry about this short-term, how long it would take to make this cheaper EV. And he said that's in it too. And it looks like he was right at this point, I'd have to say. Colin, did you think that the stock had already reflected most of the bad news?
It's kind of borderline here, and I think it's an interesting point that, they pulled forward the low-cost EV, but they provided very little detail on what exactly that cost number was going to look like as they started to produce it and where they were going to price this vehicle. It's pretty clear that they've saturated with the Model 3 and the Model Y, and that growth on those two products has stalled. The Cybertruck has been pretty disappointing in terms of the production side of it. And now they're looking for another growth engine. And so they're...
What? The Cybertruck just went into production a few months ago, and they're already at 1,000 a week. I mean, I think the ramp's going pretty good, considering that's a fundamentally, massively different product than anybody's ever released before, including Tesla. I think they're doing pretty darn good, Colin. I don't know if you could do better.
To actually pull forward that Model 2 production onto the existing lines because they can't push any more vehicles through the existing lines into the market. And now shifting really aggressively into AI. And I think they're making a pretty big bet, and betting on this neural net, learning at an accelerated rate going into this analyst day in August to really start driving the company forward. I think this is an aggressive management team, being very aggressive with its business to try and pivot as quickly as possible into a different growth vector.
Did you hear rumblings that the company...
It's almost like people don't ever pay attention to actually what's going on with Tesla. They form opinions, but they don't even know what's actually going on. This man Colin just made it sound like Tesla's pivoting. I think he even mentioned the word pivoting at least once there, right? Into AI and self-driving, all these sorts of things, right? Dude, Tesla's been on this wave way before AI was a buzzword or anything like that, okay? They've been working on this for years and years and years, right? And so this is not Tesla pivoting. This is not, let's try to focus over here. Let's try to get the stock price up. All that stuff's irrelevant at the end of the day. They understand that they're going to likely be the winner when it comes to the robotaxi fleet, and that's a ridiculously huge, we can call it multi-$100 billion, if not trillion-dollar type opportunity there. It's big to win that.
There were concerns that the company was shifting its focus away from the cheaper model to robotaxis, and was that why Elon Musk tried to allay some of those concerns yesterday. Had you heard that was what the company was?
That had been floating around here for another, for two months or more, that they were shifting, and it was clearly about shifting where the vehicle was going to be produced. Now, again, we're still very short on details as to what that cost number is targeting as they start production and what the vehicle will look like. And so as we look at the model, what we ended up doing with numbers was actually taking some EPS out. We were running at lower margins for a little bit longer here, so we pulled 20 cents out. This year, we pulled 75,000 vehicles out of this year, and then a full 50 cents out of our EPS number for next year. And I think that's what bears are going to focus on. We're now back to a controversial stock that's really as much a story stock as a reality stock at this point, where numbers are coming lower and the real growth story is on the come, and that's really with the AI and the robo-taxis.
Yeah, I'm wondering, that was a big drop in margins. That'll probably continue, although I don't know what we're talking about in terms of layoffs and what it'll really end up being. But does the company have to be really, really profitable, or can it now be, can you buy the stock because of the, sort of the future and let's just put profitability or great profitability on hold and do all these other things and invest in all these other things? Will that be enough to satisfy shareholders? And will shareholders have to change? Will it be a different type of shareholder?
It's going back to, some of the earlier days on Tesla when this was really a story stock that they were going to make an EV and disrupt the market. And now they're shifting the narrative from really being an EV maker into an autonomous vehicle maker. And that's a choppy shift. And I think it's going to take a little bit of time. There's going to be some trial and error that goes through this. The first time Elon said he was going to drive across the country with his kids in a self-driving vehicle was, well over 5 years ago. And we're still not even close to having that happen. And so, as we look at this, the narrative is shifting. They're being very aggressive about that narrative. And so there's going to be a certain segment of investors that look at this on the long term, and we'll have a lot of...
Dude, what is this guy talking about? Has he ever even tried Tesla FSD? I could drive cross country right now. I live in Vegas. I could drive all the way to Florida if I want. That'd be cake on FSD. That'd be cake. Because guess what? You're going to be on the interstate almost the entire time. Are you kidding me? Like that, like literally you can do that today. You really realize that, right, Colin?
But there's the shorts, I think, got a lot of what they were looking for last night, and that there's a demand issue. They're shifting production. They're getting a little bit better cost structure than they anticipated, but there's still an awful lot of investment and a lot of technology risk here that the company's getting credit for. And I think there's a lot of shorts that are going to reload this morning on the stock and start pressing over the next several weeks.
Will there be any lasting damage in terms of who buys Teslas? And we saw yesterday, I don't know, that someone said you'd never see a Trump bumper sticker on a Prius. It's never happened. And even Tesla's now said, the bumper sticker says, I bought this before he went insane.
I think it's already happened. I mean, the buyer for this vehicle has shifted, pretty dramatically. There was an ideological support for the brand for a number of years that the Twitter, process has really degraded for the Tesla brand. And, it's now going after, folks that are buying for, a cost-effective vehicle that gets them around. And that's the need to move to the Model 2 here and drive to a different cost profile. And so they're going after a different buyer, one that's less political, that's really just about, cheap, affordable transportation. And that's where the buying pool is. Now, the next shift is really about, whether folks want to be early adopters on this autonomous technology. And, it's a little unclear that folks want to do that. And we're going to find out here over the next several quarters.
You know what's absolutely insane to me? It's absolutely insane. Here we are, we're at this moment, right, of the most talked about vehicle in the history of mankind going into production, right, over the past several months. And this vehicle is now up to 1,000 a week, and it's just kind of getting like brushed to the side, like no one really talks about it. If they do bring it up, it's disappointing production or whatever, right? And it's fascinating to me because I'm just thinking about how many Cybertrucks are going to start to sell. I'm thinking about this thing being fully ramped at some point in the back half of the year, right? and they can sell every single one they make for a long, long time to go in the future. And I think about what the margins likely will be on that vehicle longer term. I think Cybertruck margins will be the best of actually all the vehicles, believe it or not. And it's just like, no one is even paying attention. I'm just like, okay, like they're all just moving on to autonomy or the sales numbers right now. And I'm just like, you guys are like, I can't believe we got the most talked about vehicle in history in production. And like, it's just is like an afterthought. Like, that's just crazy to me.